Hey, welcome back. Right, I've got the whole thing disassembled now, and we've got the saucer mated to the body through the neck. You can see the adjustment gap that I had to leave here to get everything nicely lined up. Now what I'm going to try and do is fill underneath this piece with car filler, so I've got a good solid footprint on there. There's another blue line to be painted around the edge of this that butts up to this middle line here just near the logo. And also the back end here near the impulse engines. All this area has to be blended into this surface. Now this is really tricky on this model because this piece for the impulse engine was molded out of clear and it's very soft. It almost squidgy. It's an absolute nightmare, so I've got to be so careful not to actually put any strain on that particular piece. Otherwise it's going to fracture all the paint off, and I really don't want that. So I'm going to have to be very careful filling that area to get these surfaces to mate properly. So yeah, plan of attack: mask off all the surfaces on the saucer, and I will mask a line around that edge to where these surfaces meet so that the filler doesn't touch this surface and the paint that's on it. Then I'm going to mask off the edge of that neck piece. Then it gives me a surface that I can push the material underneath from. It's not going to get damaged, if you see what I mean. So it's going to be masking and masking, but with a tiny gap that I can push the material through. Then I can cut the material when it's in its rubbery stage, take off the masking, and it should give me a lovely edge on there. As I said before, there's going to be another blue paintwork around the edge of this neck where it meets the saucer. So it's not super critical that I get a perfect finish, but I don't want to be sanding in that area if I can help it. So I'm going to do everything with car filler, and I'm going to do it in a number of stages. There's no way I'm going to do it in one. That would be rushing it and things are going to go wrong. So I'll start by tacking it in various areas and then filling between. I think that's my plan. Okay, I've got to be careful to keep the masking stepped down from these different thicknesses. Okay, so I've filled that now with car filler. Looks a bit messy, but it doesn't matter because the only bit I'm concentrating on is that little bit between the two bits of masking tape. It's only about 1 millimeter thick, right at the bottom edge. The rest of this is going to come off with the tape. So that's already cured now. Well, kind of cured. It's got to that rubbery stage, you can see. I could remove the tape now, but I'm not going to. So I've got to do this section and around the back. So that's how I'm doing it. We'll see if it works when I get to the end. Okay, we've got the filler in there now. This end's not quite cured yet, so I've got to wait a few more minutes. Let's get the masking off this side while we wait for the other one. I'm hoping we should have a pretty good fill there. Couple of little thin flaps that were just sitting over the top of the tape. They come off really easy. Get a tiny clean up on that before we end up doing the blue mask across the whole lot. It should be all right. So just chipping back with a craft knife, getting the edges nice and square, making these surfaces so they meet the edge of the mask, and then I'm going to fill that with car filler. Got to be super careful, it's so squidgy that casting, it's ridiculous. So I'm expecting a little bit of damage in this area, but you know, got to take the rough with the smooth. Building one of these models is not like putting together a commercially available kit. Everything is handcrafted. You have to try to make everything fit. Nothing fits properly, if you understand what I mean. So there's a shed load of work done on it. Every little joint and every little thing has got something that needs to be sorted out. So I'm trimmed it back with a scalpel, make it nice and square, just taking the little edges off. I'm going to try and cut in that little edge down the side of the new piece that I've made, just squaring off the surfaces. You can see there's a few tiny little air bubble holes in that neck joint area on the blue. They'll get filled after I've got the colour right before I do the weathering on it. And I will be putting on there some very light grey in all the edges, just to make it look a little bit lived in, make it look a bit more real. So decal placement. All the decals are slightly different in size than they should be, but we're working with them because that's what we've got. Just trying to arrange these onto the top of that clear coat that I put on previously. These are going on with Microsol, which is a little decal softener. So I have to work fairly quickly on it, otherwise you can start to rip the decal to bits by manoeuvring it. Then these will get shot with another clear coat over the top once they're on and dried for a day or two. So I'm just trying to work the spacing, trying to get the overlaps to match the reference that I've got on a screen that you just can't see at the minute. You'll see I'll fiddle with them until I feel that they're about right. A little bit more tweaking, got to bring that one in a touch. There we go. So that's the decal on. No clear coat at the moment. You can see the clear coat underneath. Onto the top ones. Had to do these in long strips, had a bit of a decal nightmare with these. It's like it's had a bit of damage in the past or something in packing, or I couldn't really work it out. But I tried to smooth them off as best I could, get them all to fit nicely. 1701, arranging that so I've got the right spacing at the end of the logos compared to the panel lines, and then I'm trying to work out the spacing of the lettering between those ends and the center point. So a little bit of fudging, but I managed to get them on quite nice. I wasn't sure if the end was the right way up, so turns out it doesn't matter. So there you go, top decals on. Now applying the decals that are these little escape hatches or whatever they are. Someone's going to probably shout up now, escape pods. I go, okay, fair enough. All the decals have had a couple of days at this point, and I'm now shooting the clear coat over the top just to seal them in. Chopping out the airlock ones, got to put those on same way. Just now pulling out the mask from the middle to reveal the airlock etched piece. Right, I've put the clear coat over the top of these now. These decals have been put on around the airlocks. They've got a clear coat over the top as well. I'm going to go over that with a bit of matte and a bit of satin so that it blends in with the rest of all the panels. And on the top, everything all sealed in now with a 2-pack clear coat. See it on the surface there. Let me make that out. So I've just knocked this section back on the clear to give it a little bit of an opaque look with a little bit of white primer to diffuse the light a touch, and then a couple of coats, and then a couple of coats of Tamiya clear yellow, just to give it that kind of dirty-ish yellowy look that's on the reference. So yeah, I'm going to mask this off. The weird thing is that the material underneath it is such a dodgy resin that it sheds paint like ridiculous. It's unbelievably difficult to get anything to stick to it, so I've got to be super careful around here not to try and lift anything or stick masking down too hard, which makes things somewhat treacherous. I'm expecting some of that light blue to come off, but we'll see. Try to be very light with that masking on there. Yeah, I think that'll be okay once I get the grill on top. I might lighten this grill up a touch actually. I didn't want it to match this front section, so slightly lighter blue. I think that looks a lot better, much nicer. Okay, we'll get that on there shortly. And another step forward. Okay, what I've got here is the gloss over the top. I've recut the stencils that I used for the pearls. Now I'm going to go over the top of this black areas with this stencil with a matte and a satin finish, just to try and break up that gloss finish on these and blend them into the rest of the details. A couple of little touch-ups to do on this later on. I'm all happy with that. So now I've got my alignment off one of the other panels here. See? Now I don't want to stick this down too hard obviously, because I don't want to rip off those decals that I've just put on, but it should line up. Now I'm not going to push that down really heavy. I just want the tiniest touches. I'm going to spray very light pressure so I don't lift the masking. Just pop a couple on there. Hate sticking masking over decals. Don't want this bleeding all over the place. So, okay, that's my matte. Let's see if it rips the decals off. Hopefully not. I think I can get away with this without the extra masking if I go careful. Hard to see any kind of difference, but we've got now different finishes over the top of the decals which blend it into the different finishes on the rest of it. I'm lining it up over the top of the pearls that are already there. Almost imperceptible, but you can see what's going on. I've got to move this now to get that pearl to shine through so I can see where I'm going with my masking. hopefully everything should blend quite nicely there now. Lost a P. That sucks. So, you no doubt saw that the two little bits of decal came off on that side there when I did that masking. I found them. Can you see that? They're stuck to this masking tape. So I'm going to try. So they should have a clear coat on the back. Try and ease it off there. Okay, let's get them back on. So we're going to try and reattach this with a little bit of microsol, just to hopefully get it to stick. I'm going to put a little bit on the area where I want it to go. No doubt there'll be a couple of edges to those decals that won't mind a bit of microsol. And then is that the right way up? I'm going to try to stick this back on. Not bad. Let's see if we can manipulate this without it disappearing and destroying itself. Next time should be final assembly.